This is Juana Capote. I'm here with Michael Johnson at the New Westminster Museum and Archives. It is Tuesday, February 11th, 2014. Put this one. So, Michael, I guess we'll begin. What was your job here on the New Westminster waterfront?
Commercial fisherman.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start as a fisherman?
When I was 2 years old. I first went out with my father when I was 2. But you mean when I got a boat or a deckhand?
Mm-hmm.
Or?
Yeah. Just gonna pause. Okay. So you said you started at 2 years old with your father?
Mm-hmm.
So he would take you out on fishing trips?
He didn't fish on the river a lot, but once or twice a year or something.
Mm-hmm.
Mother and I would go out with the boats, and later my sister.
Mm-hmm. So when did you begin working as a fisherman?
I first got my own boat when I was 19, I think it was. I rented a boat. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Okay, and you worked out of the New Westminster waterfront?
We tied the boat up over at Annieville.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been there? You should go over there. The river used to be a lot bigger here. Then they built that rock wall.
Mm-hmm.
And Annieville Slough is inside of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you rented your first ship at 19. Had you been fishing before then?
Yeah, I started with my father when I was 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the whole summer with him from the time I was 8.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go with your father?
Usually up north, in the inlets up north.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't fish on the river a lot.
So how long were you up there?
We'd usually go early June and get back late October.
What were you catching?
Salmon.
Mm-hmm. And so you started when you were 8 to help out with the actual work?
Yeah, sort of a deckhand, unpaid deckhand.
And what did your father have you doing?
Oh, just about anything, everything. Steering the boat, a lot of that. Cooking, washing up, cleaning the boat.
How did he teach you to do all this?
I don't know, just watch and learn, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And when did you begin to work and get paid?
Basically when I started my own boat, with my own boat.
And so that was when you were 19?
19 or 20 maybe.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been doing it?
I did it for 25 years maybe.
Mm-hmm. And so you worked out of Annieville?
Annieville, it was named after a woman, I think. She had a corner store or restaurant or something on the other side of the river there.
Oh, okay, that was in Surrey, I mean?
I guess that's Surrey, is it? Or Delta?
Mm-hmm. And did you have any work? Did you work out of the New Westminster waterfront as well?
No. tied up at Annieville there.
Mm-hmm. And where did you sell your fish?
We usually sold them over there, either to one of the fish companies, or sometimes we would sell them privately. People would see the boats fishing in the river, so they would come down. Once they saw the boats disappear, they knew we were back in port, and they would come down and buy fish.
And what companies did you sell to?
BC Packers mainly, sometimes Canadian Fish. Owned by Jim Pattison, of course.
What's that?
Canadian Fish is owned by Jim Pattison.
Oh, has it
Or it
always?
was anyway.
Okay.
He owns most things.
So when you sold the fish to everybody, how much did they sell for?
Oh, it's very hard to say. Would change over the years. Maybe a third of what you would pay in the store or something like that.
And is that why they came to people when they saw the ships? They would come to buy directly. From
Yeah,
you?
they would get them cheaper from us than from the store.
Mhm. Did anybody help you on the ship? Did you have any crew?
No, it's just me.
Mm-hmm. And
Sometimes, somebody, a friend or something would come out for a bit just to see what it was like.
Mhm.
Basically didn't do much.
So you would be gone every summer from June until the fall?
Usually, sometimes we'd come down to the river when the fish were at their peak and
Yes.
then go back up north again.
Mm-hmm. And how did it work? Was your ship refrigerated? Or?
No, in the early days we didn't have anything, but later on we had ice.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean you had ice?
Yeah, we had ice on the boat, so we put the fish on ice.
Mm-hmm. Just to keep them preserved? They were dead?
Right.
So how many hours a day did you work?
Well, the river's a kind of a weird place because usually only one day a week. It's like extremely hectic and manic, and so you'd start at 8 in the morning, maybe finish 8 at night or something. They would scoop up all the fish and be nothing left anyways.
Mm-hmm.
The river's so shallow that fish can't get underneath the nets. They're almost right on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So they scoop them all up very fast.
Mm-hmm. So you said you worked for about 25 years, and it was up until recently that you were fishing, is that correct?
I guess it's over 10 years now.
Oh, okay. So up until about the 90s that you fished?
Yeah.
Okay. So you started in the 70s.
Yeah.
And how did the industry change during that time?
Seems like they got more boats. It's hard to say. Didn't change a lot, I don't think.
And besides your father, did you know any other fishermen?
Well, of course, it was a big community at Annieville there.
Mm-hmm.
There might have been 200 boats down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a guess.
How did you know George Freeman?
He was a friend of my father's, and my father bought a boat from him.
What was the boat called again?
Fraser Rocket.
Fraser Rocket. And you said that George, his house was on Burn Road in Burnaby?
That's where he lived, yeah.
And he made the boats as well?
No, I don't think he had it built. Was a built special. He was a beachcomber, so he would work just about every day of the year. He told me he had a little net shed or whatever you call it. He would just look out on the river and see logs drifting by, and he would go out and pick them up, sell them to the sawmills, I guess. He told me he worked on Christmas even. That was on the North Arm here.
And did you fish most, you said not really in the Fraser River, it was mostly up north?
That's right.
So whereabouts?
Oh, Port Hardy, Rivers Inlet, Smith's Inlet, Bella Coola, Bella Bella, Millbank.
Did you go to all of these places in one season?
Quite often, most of them.
Did you have a favorite place?
Namu.
What's that?
Namu.
I've never heard of it.
It's toward Bella Bella there, between Bella Bella and Rivers Inlet. There was a famous killer whale named Namu. I don't know if you heard about that. It was one of the first ones they caught in the wild and then brought to the aquarium. They called it Namu.
So you like the place where it was from?
No, that doesn't have anything to do with it, but it was a beautiful spot, and there usually wasn't many boats there, which I liked. I didn't like the river because there was just way too many boats. You could throw a beer can at the next guy closest to you, and you usually wanted to.
So did you, when you were fishing, was it the same schedule every day from 8 to 8?
No, that was just the river. Like up north, he would fish like usually 3 or 4 days a week, and then have 3 days off. But that would be 24 hours a day.
Over the 4 days that you fished. What did you do during your time off?
Rest. Repair the net, repair the boat, stuff like that. Wash your socks.
And did you usually dock someplace when you were doing
Yeah,
that?
you'd go into various fishing camps, like Namu had a big fishing camp. It'd be a place to buy food, buy fuel, and take the boat up if it needed to be repaired and stuff like that. Showers and net sheds.
What are net sheds?
Big buildings where you keep your nets. You usually have like 4 or 5 different nets.
And why would you keep them in those buildings?
So they'd be available if you wanted them.
Did you have any, like, your set of nets on the ship already?
No, you'd usually just have one on the boat. These others would be in various net sheds.
So did you use different nets for different types of fish?
That's right.
So what kind did you use for salmon?
Well, it's all for salmon. Lake salmon come from 3 pounds to 20 or 30 pounds. So we need a different net for different sized salmon.
And what kind did you use?
I used all different kinds.
Mm-hmm. So if you needed a different type of net, what did you do then?
Well, you'd go into Namu, for example, and take one net off and put another one on.
Mm-hmm. Did you rent the other nets?
No, I would own them.
Okay, so they were just interchangeable? How many fishermen were at these different camps?
Oh, Namu was a big camp, so there might be 300 boats there, but some other camps might be 50.
Mm-hmm. So did you see the same people from camp to camp?
No, they're quite often different.
Mm-hmm.
People would have their favorite areas where they like to fish.
Mm-hmm. Was it lonely to be by yourself for that many months?
Well, you usually fish with a group, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Of course, you're talking on the telephone all the time.
Yes. So did you guys work as a team or?
No, it's all individual.
But just you were in the same area?
Well, it was sort of like a group of friends you would hang around with or talk to on the phone.
Mm-hmm. So how did you end up being friends with these people?
Well, my father knew a lot of people, so I usually just went along with his gang.
Mm-hmm. So you had a built-in network?
I guess I shouldn't nod.
That's right. Yeah. So the fishermen, were they mostly men? Were there any women?
Well, 99.9% men. There were a couple, I remember a couple of women who had boats. Usually they got the boat because their husband died or something and they didn't have an occupation, so they jumped on the boat, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And so they could do the job as well. There was nothing.
Oh, it's mainly mechanical. The drums.
What are the drums?
You know what a drum is, I guess. It just winds the net on. It's all mechanical.
And did you need any special tools or clothing for this job?
Well, you need a boat. But apart from that, no.
So what was your first boat called?
Well, I called it the Rocky Way. There was a popular song at the time called Rocky Mountain Way, so I just took out the mountain.
That was the boat you rented?
Actually, my father bought it and I rented it from him.
Mm-hmm. How much did it cost to rent the boat?
I think I paid him $4,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. And when did you have your own boat?
It was the late 70s, I think it was. I rented a boat for 4 years and then bought one.
What was the boat you bought?
It was called the Sandra Dawn. I left the name on it because I kind of liked it. I don't know why. DAWN.
So do most people change the name of boats when they get them?
I think most people do, yeah. I can remember naming my father's boats when I was just a kid. Like I named his one boat when I was 8 years old. I called it the Ocean Wave. That was a big thrill for me to see the name get painted on the boat and everything. I named it after cranberries. There used to be Ocean Spray cranberries, so
Yes.
I just changed it to Ocean Wave.
So why did your dad let you name the ship, the boat?
I don't. He wasn't very good with words. I don't think. I named another boat of his. I called it Sea Rider, which was a play on words from Easy Rider, the movie. It's still my favorite name for a boat.
So besides the boat, were there any other tools that you needed?
Well, I usually had a big toolbox full of tools, but just basic tools. Everything's on the boat, radar and radios and stuff. Of course, we didn't have radar when I started my first boat, and I remember getting caught in the fog out in the Gulf here. I was trying to find my way in, and I ran aground. And managed to get off. I guess you know the mud flats out in front of the airport. I ran aground there.
So you were saying that you ran aground in the fog. What happened that day?
I managed to get off, just put it in reverse and hope for the best. And it's so smooth there, it's just mud, so I backed off.
So how long did that take?
It didn't take long. It was strange, in the days without radar, people wandering around, sort of barely knowing where they're going.
Were there any accidents?
In the fog? Oh, yeah, quite a few. Sometimes people would run into the tugboats, run into the line, and that can be fatal quite often because the boat gets sucked under that line and people drown. I know that happened a couple of times when I was out in the Gulf there.
And they were both fatal?
One of them was.
What happened to the other person?
I can't remember.
So how did people prevent that from happening?
Usually you don't like to move around when it's fog, in those days anyway. Or sometimes, people would see the fog coming and go to the harbor.
So did you have any interactions with the New Westminster waterfront?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Did you?
I fished in the Fraser here,
Yes.
a few days a year usually. Always hated it. There'd be so many boats. Like sometimes there'd be 900 boats or something in the river. It's just a nightmare.
So was that hard? Did it make it very hard to catch salmon?
It made it hard to catch, and nets would run into each other and get tangled up, and you have to try to get them apart. And if a net would get stuck on the bottom, everybody else would drift over him and get stuck on him. But if ever brought your net up, you couldn't find another place to put it back in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Terribly stressful. And I know once we just put our nets out 8 o'clock in the morning, and this U.S. Navy boat from the quay here decided he wanted to go out back to the U.S., I guess. He started running over nets, cutting them in half, just one after the other. I think he did about 20 nets before they finally got him to really slow down and stop and let people pick their nets up so he could go. I know my net got cut in half.
So what did you have to do then?
Well, take your net and go back to camp and try to patch it back together, tie it back together.
Mm-hmm. So did you tie every single piece back together?
Well, you can just do the best you can. You tie the top part, cork line.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that was really bad. So the next day, so try to repair it.
Mm-hmm. How long did that take?
Oh, a day or two. I know. The people got together and sued the Navy, and they paid us some small amount. I can't remember, $300 or something.
Mm-hmm. Was that $300 each?
Yeah. That wasn't enough to cover the damage, but that was just the best we could do.
Mm-hmm. So what was the U.S. Navy doing here in New West?
Well, we used to sometimes tie up at the quay here, and people would go and visit the ship or something. It's like PR or something, I guess.
That was in the 70s or the 80s?
I think that was the 80s, late 80s or early 90s. Can't remember. We had a lot of battles with the tugs, of course. Tugboats towing logs and everything. They would insist on going when we were fishing, of course. When you saw one coming, you had to pick the net up, or it'd go right over you.
Over your net? And ruin the net?
They were very, very cocky, get out of my way. They thought they had the right of way.
Did they?
I don't know. Technically, it's a much bigger industry, I guess, but I couldn't tell you the technical details. I mean, the legalities.
So how long did it take you to gather your nets when that sort of thing happened?
Well, it depends on whether there's fish in that, but you can usually do it in 15 minutes. They usually go pretty slow. You can see them coming, for miles. You've got to pick up your net and get out.
So did they radio you that they were going to...
Not usually. Sometimes they would, but we're coming.
So as soon as you saw them, you knew you had to get out of the way?
If you're smart.
So was that something that you learned from a bad experience with them?
Well, they're not going to try and go around you. They come right down the middle of the rivers.
Did you know anybody who got into any sort of argument with them, or?
Oh, people were always yelling at them on the phone, There's a running battle between them and us.
And is it that way still today? Like, do you know?
I couldn't tell you. I'd imagine it is. We always thought they could take one day off a week, but no.
about with the fishing companies, BC Packers and Canadian Fish? How did you sell your fish to them?
They would have, we used to call them collectors, bigger boats, here, there, and everywhere, and just take them to your fish. Sometimes they would come around, but usually, like, they would be in Annieville then, waiting for you to come in.
So you'd go at the end of the summer and drop off all your fish?
No, at the end of the day.
What about when you were up north?
Well, it was usually done every day.
And there were collectors?
They would come around, yeah.
So how did the collectors take the fish from your boat?
You just throw them onto their boat. They would have huge tanks that we used to call slush tanks, sort of half water and half ice. Keeps it at a temperature around 32 or 33.
And so you had to physically shovel all the fish in, or?
Yeah, we usually used what we call picks, like long stick about 3-4 feet with a sharp end, and they stick it in the gill area.
How do you spell pecs? How do you spell that word?
Picks.
Picks? Oh, just a pick. Okay, I misheard.
Or you throw them by hand if you want. Sometimes it was easier.
How big were the fish that you caught, the salmon?
Usually around 6 pounds or something.
And you mentioned that having the radar was a big change, and then the ice on the ships. Were there any other tools and equipment that changed over the years?
I guess the anchor winch, if you used to have to pull it by hand, and then they got, winches that would do it mechanically.
When did that change?
Well, it came in slowly, I guess, but 60s, maybe.
So by the time you had your own ship, it was already a fixture?
No, I didn't have one on mine. It was a light boat, but no, I didn't have one. Do it by hand.
Must have been pretty heavy.
The boat was light. It was built for speed. The anchor wasn't all that heavy, maybe 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds only. There were other things like sounders and fish finders and automatic pilots and things like that.
What did those things do?
Pilot steers the boat mechanically, so you don't have to steer it.
And the other things?
Fish finder? Well, supposedly showed you fish. Fish were down there. I could never make it work. I think I only found minnows. What else did I say? Sounders? Yeah, they show you how deep it is, which is very handy, of course.
Was the work dangerous?
Quite a few fishermen died, but usually because of storms, but sometimes people would get caught up in the net and get dragged out of the boat.
So what
I
happened?
know one year, I think it was 13 fishermen died. It's basically a big storm.
How did they die?
It was in herring season, like it'll be March, and it was a big storm, and they got caught traveling from one area to another. I know one person personally survived because he got into the skiff. They have these big herring skiffs, and there's a little section right at the bow that's like watertight, and he got into there and somehow survived for 2-3 days in there until the storm died out. They found him.
Were you ever in any accidents?
Storms, man? No. No.
Mm-hmm.
I did my best to avoid them.
Are those some of your notes?
When I started, there wasn't any quay down here.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a place for boats, a place to get fuel, and basically nothing there at all.
And that was in the 70s?
No, that's when I was 8, so that would be 61.
Mm-hmm. And there were probably a lot of companies along there. That's why there wasn't anything? Is that the case?
There wasn't much of anything as I remember it. Don't remember it clearly.
So when you went fishing from October until May, what did you do during that time?
During the winter, I took a lot of university courses and was an aspiring writer, things like that.
What university courses did you take, Michael?
Just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
English, psychology, sociology.
And you got a degree out of that?
No, I never went all the way. No. It's still out there waiting for me.
And just out of curiosity, you wanted to become a writer?
I did, yeah.
So have you written any books?
I haven't published any books, but I've written a couple.
Well, I'll ask you that a little bit after the interview. So the waterfront here, was it just a place of work for you, or was it also a place of leisure?
Mainly work. I worked one winter on they had some project to clean up Annis's Island,
Mm-hmm.
the shore got full of junk, and we dragged the junk away, burnt the driftwood and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So when was that?
That was maybe 96 or something.
Mm-hmm. So how did you find out about that job?
I'd quit fishing, and they had projects to give fishermen other jobs or something, and that was sort of a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm. So it was the government that
Yeah.
was doing that project? At that time, were there a lot of fishermen that were quitting?
There was, you know, we had a crew of 30.
Did you know everybody on the crew?
I didn't know any of them, though. It was supposed to make the river the river better for fingerlings on the way out, so they could feed in the grass and hide in the grass.
Mm-hmm. So why were all the fishermen quitting at the time?
Well, the government figured there was too many boats, so they bought a lot of boats.
Mm-hmm. And they bought your boat as well?
Yeah.
Did they give you, how much did they give you for it?
I think it was 75,000.
Mm-hmm. Did they give you any training or job?
You were supposed to get training, but I got a few computer courses, but that was about all.
Mm-hmm.
Some people got a lot more than that.
Was that training helpful for your career?
No, I can't say it was very helpful. There was a kind of computer craze going on at the time, and everybody was going to get a job on computers, and it never happened, of course.
Mm-hmm. So when you were fishing, and you worked in through Annieville, did you also live in Surrey?
No, I usually lived in New West or Burnaby.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get to work? How did you get to work? How did you get to your ship?
Oh, I had a truck.
Mm-hmm. And so you drive from Burnaby or New West there. And when you were gone for a few months at a time, did you just leave your truck at Annieville?
No, I usually left it with my parents. I mean, at their house.
Mm-hmm. Was it close to Annieville?
They lived in Surrey.
Mm-hmm. So what was good about your work as a fisherman?
I'm tempted to say not a lot, but I guess you're your own boss, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not tied down to going to one place every day, here, there, and everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And what were the bad things?
Well, I never made much money, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stress involved because whether you make $1 or not depends entirely on you. You're not getting a paycheck or anything.
Is that why you decided to leave?
Yeah, it was, I wasn't making much money at all.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do it over, I wouldn't have, but
Okay, I think it stopped. Spoke too soon.
we've got a soundtrack.
That's right. Well, I think I can edit that part out. So, BC Packers and Canadian Fish, are they still around?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
you said that you use nets, and I understand that there are different types of nets and different types of fishing methods. What kind did you use?
I was a gillnet fisherman. I also did a little herring fishing, and I worked 1 year on a trawler. And
So what's a gillnet?
it's a net. You've seen them out in the river here, I think, with little corks.
Mm-hmm. And you put it out for a while and wait for the fish to get caught? How do you know when they're caught?
Well, you can see them hitting the net.
Mm-hmm.
And the net will go down for a while and then pop up.
Mm-hmm. And how's herring fishing different from?
It's basically the same. Trolling, of course, they use hooks. They drag hooks through the water.
Mm-hmm. So why did you try all these different types of fishing?
Well, I mainly just did gillnet fishing. Herring fishing is in the spring before salmon,
Mm-hmm.
so you can do both.
Mm-hmm. And you tried that for 1 year?
I didn't have a license, so I did it for, I don't know, 10 years maybe, as a deckhand.
So
The license would be very expensive to buy, so I didn't have the money to buy one.
how much was a license?
Maybe 70,000 to 100,000 or something.
No. And what about for salmon fishing?
The license was $1,500 a year, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. So a lot cheaper than the herring fishing. And when you said you also spent 1 year on a trawler, what was that like?
That was when I was like 18, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. So that was before you got your own boat?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do during that 1 year?
I worked on this boat, as a deckhand. I didn't know the fellow, but he was a friend of my father's. Strange. That was the first time I was away from home, so.
Mm-hmm. So what's a deckhand's job like?
I did the cooking, and I, of course, have to clean the fish, assume you know what I mean, fillet them,
Mm-hmm.
and then put them down on the ice. Usually start 3:30 in the morning and go till dark. It's a long day.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be out for 10 days and then come back into port. So it's quite different from gill netting.
Mm-hmm. What did you cook when you were a deckhand?
Whatever the boss wanted. He was a guy who liked huge breakfasts, pancakes and eggs and bacon and everything.
Were you a good cook?
I don't know. He didn't die till years later.
So that's a good sign. So what kind of boats were the best suited for gill netting?
The average boat was about 35 feet long.
Mm-hmm. You needed one of about that size?
That's right.
Why that size?
I don't know. You need a certain size for carry fish and nets and drums, and it has to be a certain size.
with BC Packers and Canadian Fish, how did they pay you once they got the fish onto the collector boats?
Usually they would pay us at the end of the year.
How did they keep track of what?
You would have a book, and they would mark down into your book every time you delivered fish to them. Of course, when my friend George here started on the river, they only had rowboats, and his job was to row the boat around. He was only 13, so quite a job for him. Of course, the river is usually moving in one direction, so his job would be to row the boat back up to where they started. Start all over again.
That sounds very tough. So, did they ever mix up the information that they wrote down, and you didn't get paid?
I don't remember them. They're pretty meticulous. You have your own copy, and they have a copy.
So it's like carbon copies that they had. Oh, that's good. And what did you do until you had the money? How did you just have to budget everything?
Well, you could get, they would advance you money.
Right.
In the old days, they had their own money, sort of. It would be a book with tickets that one said 50 cents and one said $1. And
Yes.
tear the ticket off and use it at the company store.
Right, yes.
Yeah, they had company stores in the old days.
What was at the company stores?
Basic store, but you would use the company money, sort of.
Okay. And where were the company stores?
Little fishing camps up and down the coast. Usually very expensive.
Very expensive?
Yeah, compared to town.
So was that a popular? I can't see it being popular then.
No, popular, but that's the only place there is usually.
So you had no choice but to go there.
Not usually. Sometimes there'd be a little store. In Rivers Inlet there was a little private store during the summer.
So, Michael, what's your most important memory of the waterfront and of your life as a fisherman?
The New West waterfront? I don't know. I did have one good day on the river. I think I caught 500 sockeye, I think it was. That would be my best memory.
What did you usually catch?
Oh, quite a bit less.
Yes.
Anywhere from 1 to 100 maybe. I got so busy I forgot to put a hat on. The top of my head was burnt bright red when I got home.
Oh, the day you caught the 500 fish?
I was so busy I didn't know what I was doing.
And that was here on the Fraser River?
Yeah, just down by Alex Fraser.
Okay.
Of course, there's a lot of new bridges on the rivers since 45.
I guess before that, people would just use ferries to get across the river.
I think so.
And was the waterfront, both Aliceville and New Westminster? Was it a respectable place to be working and hanging out in?
Annieville? Well, there was people just worked there. They went home.
Mm-hmm.
There was no nightclub. No, it was a pretty quiet place. People just working.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that I missed that you wanted to share with us?
I can't remember. No, I think that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you very much, Michael. That was great.
Okay, thanks.